Tonight's a fire. Listen, Councillor Hines is telling you in a very subliminal way, start preparing, go and make some babies because you can get to deliver them right here. You ain't gotta go far. You ain't gotta go spend no big set of money at no private hospital. This councillor giving you some subliminal messages. All right. March the 2nd, APNU AFC. Tonight I want to speak more specifically to the young people. But this doesn't mean that I'm not addressing our elderly as well. But when I speak to some of my friends, they tell me sometimes, Mike, me think I go in a vote body. Me there under. I still gotta live. Well, let me ask you something. On March the 3rd, after the opportunity has passed for you to exercise your constitutional right, there is no other chance. There is no other opportunity for you to have your say in electing your leaders. Now we look at some of our elders in the community. We look at some of our senior citizens. We look at some of the women of Sophia. And let me tell you, I know of the sacrifices that they have made in years gone by. I know that many of them have literally put their bodies to blows to ensure that on March the 2nd, you, young people, me, not so young people, we have the right, we have the freedom to walk into the voting booth peacefully and elect our leaders. Yeah! Not so long ago, there were persons who would have tried to deny us our right. There were things being done in years gone by with moving people off of the list, changing their addresses, and a whole set of nonsense. A lot of these things may have died down and are not as prevalent. But brothers and sisters, let me tell you, voting is one of the most important activities, one of the most sacred rights that we have as citizens of this country. The last person that spoke to you, the chairperson tonight, is Councillor Clayton Hines. He's a councillor on the Main City Council. I'm a councillor on the Main City Council. One of the reasons we are councillors is because people like you went to local government elections and exercised your right to elect your leaders so that your councillors, your local representatives can look after your interests and ensure that health centers like these turn into cottage hospitals. Yeah! Ensure that streets like these get street lights. Ensure that drains like these get cleaned. Ensure that roads that run in here, there, and in the back of Sophia get fixed and rehabilitated. For 20 years. 20 years, 2 decades. That is a whole generation. That is a baby that born and reached up to 20 years. We were denied our constitutional right in this country to elect our local leaders. Councillor Hines, persons like myself, young people in this crowd who want to represent Sophia, who have the ability and the potential, who have bright ideas for Sophia, who see a bright and better future for Sophia. Their constitutional right was stolen from them to elect their leaders, to be the leaders for their communities, because the PPP denied this country local government elections for 20 years, people. His Excellency, President David Granger, in 2014, he protested. He protested day and night. He promised He said, once you elect me and the APNU AFC, we will hold local government elections. We will ensure that it is held at the time when it is constitutionally due. And brothers and sisters, in 4.5 years, we had 2 local government elections. Out of Sophia, you've had councillors, you've had a deputy mayor. This, brothers and sisters, is giving power back to you, back to the people. The PPP, they disbanded most of the councils, most of the NDCs, and they installed what you call IMCs, interim management committees. So they basically took your right from you to elect your leaders, and then they chose persons to put in those places. That is wrong, my friends. And we must not allow Guyana to go back to that stage again. This city, in the last 4 years, unless you really hide in your conscience, if you look at this city, you can see the transformations that have happened in this city. You can see many streets in this city that have street lights. You can see many drains in this city that have been cleaned. You go down in Georgetown and you can see the difference in Georgetown. Let me ask you a question. Did Sophia, did this area used to flood before 2015? Did it used to flood before 2015? How many floods have we experienced since 2015? The work that has been done, not only by the local government authorities, but by the executive arm of government, the central government as well, has helped to ensure that these very basic things that we were denied, basic sanitation in our communities, basic street lights for security for our elderly, for our children, for our young mothers, for our young women, these basic things that we were denied are now freely available to all of us. In the last 4.5 years, I believe we can safely say that the relationship with communities such as Sophia, such as the community that I'm from, Lodge or Royston, and other such communities that I call the forgotten communities. I call them forgotten because in the last government, they weren't neglected. Neglected is to know that they're there and they just forget about these communities. So these communities were left to rot. But in the last 4 years, we have seen development, we have seen improvements, we have seen representation at all levels in these communities. Not only have we seen improvement in representation, but we have seen an improvement in the relationship with the community and the security services. These communities are no longer patrolled as though there's nothing good in these communities and only bad people live in these communities. That is how these communities were stigmatized for many, many years. As the councillor just said, once you said you come from Lodge or Albaiston or Sophia, people automatically assume a lot of things about you. These things are slowly changing. These communities are slowly transforming. So on March the 2nd, when we go to exercise our constitutional right, and when we go to do so freely, without fear, we must remember what we experienced for the last 20 years under the PPP. We must remind our young people who are too young to remember the days of being afraid and having to be off the streets at 7 o'clock or 8 o'clock in the night. We must remind them of all of the slaughter and the blood and the gore and the death that we endured in our communities for years. The PPP likes to come into communities like Sophia and Lodge and Alboystown, and they understand what they have done. They have systematically destroyed these communities. So when they come into these communities offering them crumbs, and they say, well, we can give you a $10,000 cash grant, or we can give you a $5,000, they understand that they have already trampled you for 20 years. So you're now just glad to get something. But let me tell you something, brothers and sisters. Our vote, our right to elect our leaders is worth far more than $10,000. It's worth far more than $5,000 and the promise of a box of food or some nonsense. In my community, I can't necessarily speak about Sophia because I don't know, but I'm sure it happens. But in my community, my children, they benefit from the 5Bs program. They benefit from going to school and getting a hot meal in some of the primary schools. In Sophia, I'm glad you tell me. These things that we, the government, the AP and UAFC government has introduced and will expand once we elected, are worth far more than 10,000. Yeah! Worth far more than 5,000. I noticed at a couple of the last public meetings, the battery always dying. But let me tell you something. No matter what the PPP send, the good message will still come out. Okay? The way out of poverty, the way for these young kids in these communities to become doctors, lawyers, business owners, young entrepreneurs, is not through $10,000. It is through an improved education system. It is through equal access to quality education. It is through ensuring that all teachers are trained. It is ensuring that if you are going to school and you don't have a boots, that the government will provide a boots for you. It is ensuring that if you need to go to school and you can't make it to school because you don't have money for a bus fare, the government will provide a bus fare for you. It is ensuring that if you are able and you're big and you could ride on the road, you will get a bicycle to go to school. I have friends who had to drop out of school because they didn't have food to go to school. They didn't have boots to go to school. They couldn't afford the uniforms to go to school. These are all bright people, but they did not have the opportunities. And what this government is doing is ensuring that the young people, the children in our communities, they have equal access to opportunities. Not just those who live in affluent communities, who live in Pradoville communities and other such communities. So on March the 2nd, when we go into the booth, we are not just voting for us, for me and you. We are voting for these young kids in these communities. We are exercising our right to ensure that these children have safe streets to play on, that they have a safe community to grow up in, that they have a safe community free from diseases because there's a health center, to ensure that they are living in a community that's free from flooding, free from crime. Brothers and sisters, there's some persons coming into our communities and they're sharing out some sample ballots. And they're telling you, vote for AP and UAFC at the top and give somebody else a chance at the bottom. This elections, brothers and sisters, is an election that will determine the next 50 years of this country. This election will have an impact on the next 2 or 3 generations of this country. So the decisions that we are making are not just for 5 years. They are not just for 10 years. It's for your children, my children, their children, and their children's children. We cannot put the resources of this country into people who have shown us that they cannot be trusted, into the hands of people who have shown us that they will steal our money and build Pradovilles for themselves. We cannot put our money into the hands of people who have shown us that they are going to give their sons $8 billion contracts to run fiber optic cables and not put the money into our schools and into our education system. On March the 2nd, we have a choice between drugs, death, blood, Irfan and the 19 charges, 19 charges, and we have His Excellency President David Arthur Granger, a man of integrity. There is no choice, there is no other choice but His Excellency. So on March the 2nd, vote for the APNU AFC, the palm and the key, at the top and at the bottom. Thank you very much.